In some iconic images this week, David Cameron on the steps of number 10, Gordon Brown's goodbye with his children in Downing Street. Excuse me, Nick Clegg appointed Deputy Prime Minister. The ability to name more than one or two Lib Dems. Vince the Cable walking along Downing Street to be Business Secretary, working alongside his old mucker, George Gideon Osborne. And our little friend Sarah Tether, a minister at last, probably for tiny tots. Down, Diane, I know you're a little jealous of her getting a cabinet position or a government position, but just hold that green envy there. So we asked the Observer's Andrew Rawnsley to look back at the momentous events of the week.
Gordon Brown has announced he intends to step down as Labour leader.
Her Majesty the Queen has asked me to form a new government.
Historic, seismic, momentous, unprecedented, incredible. Those of us employed to chronicle the dramas of politics have exhausted the dictionary of language trying to do justice to an extraordinary week in politics. The first coalition government since the war with Hitler. The first time Liberals have wielded serious power since David Lloyd George knew your great-great-grandmother. The youngest Prime Minister in 2 centuries, the first Prime Minister's wife to move into number 10 pregnant since, well, I don't know. And a sadder record for Gordon Brown as he rode off into the sunset as the shortest ever serving Labour Prime Minister. Dave and Nick couldn't quite kid us that it was love at first sight. We all knew that it was a marriage brokered after nearly a week of intense haggling over policies and cabinet seats. Still, don't they look a beautiful couple? Observe the competitive backstroking as they go into number 10. This was a shotgun wedding, so when they appeared in the garden to swear their vows against the background of birdsong, they made a determined effort to convince us that they really have fallen for each other.
I'm delighted to be standing here with the new Deputy Prime Minister, the two of us together leading this historic Liberal Democrat Conservative administration.
I came into politics to change politics and to change Britain for good. Together, that job starts today. Thank you.
Will they live happily ever after? Maybe, probably not. Nearly all governments end in tears, and it's particularly hard to make a success of a coalition. Incidentally, what do we call this one? Con-libs? Libservatives? Condems? It seems to me that this coalition is quite a masterstroke by the Tory leader, potentially an even bigger strategic game changer than Tony Blair's Clause 4 moment. It repositions the Tories towards the centre and dilutes the influence of the unreconstructed right. The Lib Dems will have to share responsibility for the painful spending cuts, which will soon be implemented by Dave's friend at the Treasury, George Osborne, and his new Lib Dem partner, David Laws, who's cast as the Axeman. While wedding bells were ringing for Dave and Nick, you might expect Labour to be feeling like death. After all, the party has just gone down to its second worst defeat since 1918. And yet the depleted ranks of Labour MPs seem weirdly quite cheerful. And Gordon Brown sounded almost like a man relieved that it was finally all over.
As I leave the second most important job I could ever hold, I cherish even more the first, as a husband and father. Thank you, and goodbye.
He took his leave with Sarah and their 2 sons for company, exiting the stage with those closest to him to take the chill off the evening and his defeat. Many in Labour's ranks are relishing the prospect of opposing the con-rat coalition. The enemy is clearly in sight and the government will soon have to make some pretty unpopular decisions. And Labour can finally hold the leadership contest it ought to have had 3 years ago. David Miliband was the first out of the gate.
I'm standing for the leadership because I believe that I can lead Labour to rebuild itself as the great reforming champion of social and economic change in this country.
The former Foreign Secretary is often and misleadingly labelled a Blairite. He's actually a bit more social democratic than that. There'll almost certainly be opposition to him from Ed Balls, who's very accurately tagged as a Brownite. John Cruddas is likely to stand as the tribune of the sensible left, and Andy Burnham seems to fancy his chances too. If you want an Ed who's not a Balls and a Miliband who's not David, well, there's younger brother Ed M. Some say you can't have siblings fighting each other in a leadership contest. I say, why not?
Well, this is the first coalition government for 65 years.
This remarkable 7 days in British politics ought to have taught us that the previously inconceivable can suddenly become reality. Two bitter rivals who were at each other's throats are now in each other's arms, for richer, for poorer, for better, for worse.
And Andrew Rawnsley has stopped wandering around St James's Park and